when I made the decision to engage in the military, go to war, and live in the life of violence that I lived in with my brothers,
we owe it to them as a country to continue to support them because they were, in fact, invaded by Russia. They are not the aggressors here.
We need to get the focus off of the trigger pullers and the hardcore special ops people.
We've been conducting economic warfare against Americans instead of against our adversaries, and that needs to change.
The fact of the matter is, this should have been done a long time ago.
Look, this just needs to happen, all right? We are getting wildly out of hand with this. Our interest rate payments are going to be more than our actual DOD payments themselves.
I didn't really consider the aftermath of what I'd be facing, or what all of us would be facing after the shooting stopped. Hi everybody, this is John Coney back from Real Veteran News. We've got a lot of really interesting news from the Pentagon this week. But first I want to remind you that if you want to help out the channel, please watch the whole video and leave a comment. So this week there's a lot that happened with Pete Hegseth and Trump, firing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the impending DOD civilian workforce budget cuts. They announced that they wanted to cut the budget by $50 billion a year each year for the next couple years. And Elon Musk sent out his famous "What did you do this week?" email. So I would like to keep talking shit about Elon Musk, but I'm probably not going to go in that direction this week. I think I've done a lot of it recently. But what I do want to talk about this week is killer robots, which I've been asking for a long time. I know that in the Biden administration, people were worried about the killer robots, and there was a lot of studies being done. They had a lot of lawyers gumming up the works, and they've been trying to figure out how to do this. Some companies have taken upon themselves to make more drones, make more robots, working on AI. I've seen a DARPA project recently publish some PR stuff saying that they've been working on drone algorithms. But the fact of the matter is, this should have been done a long time ago. And what I found heartening about this article was that it cited an unnamed Defense Department official who was saying that the time for prototypes is over and they're going to go headfirst into building autonomous AI-powered killer robots, right? If you aren't really familiar with how this is going to affect the military or where it's been going, we've had robots for a long time. Essentially, your car is a robot. But the problem is that we don't have a way to control the robots without a human being controlling them. That's where AI comes in, right? So the same idea with the self-driving cars that Elon Musk's been going for with Tesla, and I guess other people as well, that's kind of the holy grail for that, is we need AI that can control these military robots, which is essentially like a self-driving car, so that they can support warfighters, replace them, replace some of them, something. But we need to get these robots and these unmanned vehicles out into the battlefield and into the oceans and in the skies, so that we have to put less, and hopefully in the future none, of our precious young military people in harm's way in order to fight our battles. That is really the future of the military and the future of warfare, which is why I'm always saying that we need to be focused on technology. We need to get the focus off of the trigger pullers and the hardcore special ops people and get more geniuses, get more technology people into the military, into the government, and build the future of the military, which is going to look very different than the military that I joined, that many of you joined, or that were around if you're a civilian when you were younger. In my videos so far, I've been criticizing Trump and Hegseth, saying that I didn't think that they were really pushing on AI for the military. I did give Trump, an A essentially grade for his policies regarding AI and his trashing the Biden policies, which were failing, terrible policies that were screwing our country over. And that has been one of the best things that Trump has done for us. Right after immigration, he's done a good job on the border and immigration and on deportation so far, although there's still a lot of work to be done, obviously. But right behind that is the AI, which on the civilian side of things, he's done a good job on so far in these first couple weeks. I didn't really know what they were doing in the military. The first inkling that I've got of it was through this article. I smell Elon Musk all over this, and I've been shitting on him because he's been an asshole lately, and I don't really agree with how he's doing a lot of things with the government, but we needed somebody to break through the defense contractors, the old stodgy military officer crew in this area, and to push them to go faster and to build the robots, because like I said, that's what we need. And I've been sure of that for years and years and years now, and that's all I've really wanted. That's just what I've wanted, and I'll explain why. So Elon, Hegseth, whoever it is, no matter the fact that I've been shitting on you for other things, like please, please, please make this happen. Get us the robots, get us the killer robots. The defense contractors, and if you don't know, and you're not from here, you're coming from outside this area, are these old civilians or military officers. They equate success with getting new contracts, bigger contracts, and bringing in money. They don't care about the military. They don't care about these robots. They're slow. They care about milking the budget as much as they can. They were slow on cyber, and we got hacked all over the place. They were slow on UAVs. They were slow on AI. They're always late to the party. They fucking suck. And they were shitty second-rate officers that, crawled out from the military or wherever, they left from with their security clearances, and they've been fucking things up. They keep the trains running on the tracks, and they, manage all the jobs, all the contractor jobs around here. But they're slow, they're soft, they're too old. They got out of the military after however much time they did. They settled into the suburbs, they settled into the slow lane, and they don't have their edge. And they're not out in front, they're not leading, they are not providing what's necessary for the military in our country. They're just spending the nation's money, and I hate it. It's one of the reasons why I've been so upset over the last couple years is I want to go fast. I believe the AI needs to go as fast as possible. With Biden and Kamala, they were slowing things down extraordinarily. Back before that, Trump wasn't really focused on AI. It was really, Trump term 1 was really kind of the beginning of military AI. Everything in the beginning, military and the government sucks ass, and it did suck. But I don't know what would have happened if he'd gotten 2 terms back to back, but as soon as Biden got in, it got shittier and slower and really hasn't progressed very much at all over the 4 years of Biden. Now, with Elon in there, he's got a pretty good idea of what to do from what I've heard. I read his biography back before all this bullshit. I understand how he operates. I don't like when he's hacking up the Forest Service or this other stuff that he doesn't understand about. But he seems to, even though he's not a military man and he's not a hardcore American, in my opinion, he does seem to understand what is necessary with regard to the future of these contracts, the future of these robots, and his influence is permeating in the Defense Department, I think. And I think Hegseth theoretically will pick up on it and will drive the football down the field, if you want to use a sports metaphor. Whatever happens, they need an AI czar. They need someone to deliver on this. Like, we absolutely need this. You cannot count on these shitty defense corporations and all their shitty little peons that are just wasting money, wasting time over and over and over again. I just cannot stand it. These people do not live in the same world that I live in, And when I made a decision to engage in the military, go to war, and live in the life of violence that I lived in with my brothers, I didn't really consider the aftermath of what I'd be facing and what all of us would be facing after the shooting stopped or slowed down or we got too old or whatever. I didn't really think about it. I figured, I'd get hit, I'd be some disabled veteran or I'd get killed or whatever, but apparently I'm invincible. So I'm still here, I'm still leading, I'm still trying to figure things out. The world I live in is different because these guys don't spend time in cemeteries. They didn't lose men. They didn't lose people that were close to them. They didn't lose their friends. They didn't see these families collapse. They didn't see wives without their husbands. They didn't see children growing up without their fathers. They didn't see mothers killing themselves. We need the robots as soon as possible. We need the robots for the next war. China is going to have them, and they're going to be bad motherfucking robots. We need our robots for whatever comes next. Please get it done. All right, now it's time to start the discussion about military news with good old friend Mason Ballou, former Air Force officer and first person to do videos with me about the military and the news. How you doing, Mason?
Hey, John. Thanks for having me.
All right, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Like you said, I'm a former Air Force officer and just a general technology nerd, and I'm a concerned citizen that hopes we don't get wiped off the map in World War III.
Obsessed with World War III, as always. Also obsessed about national debt, whereas I'm from D.C., so I love the national debt. All right. So the main things we want to talk about are the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the officer firings, DOD personnel cuts, and the DOD budget cuts that Hegseth announced this week, right? So it's all like Pentagon stuff that we're interested to talk about here. So first off, General C.Q. Brown was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the Air Force. He was kind of like a woke officer, and he was fired. I'm surprised he didn't get fired earlier, but I guess they were looking for someone to replace him with or something. And he got fired on Friday night by Hegseth and Trump, replaced by Dan Raisin Kane, who's an Air Force officer who Trump had as an important officer during the anti-ISIS campaign during Trump Session 1, where they wiped out ISIS. And he obviously did a good job of that. And I was with an Air Force pilot that I grew up with back in those days, drinking a beer. And he told me that they were running out of bombs at that time, which I thought was awesome because I hate ISIS, as we all do, as one does. So, Mason, do you want to get started on CQ Brown and the firings and all that?
I'll say CQ Brown seems like he was a good dude. Seems like he was a good officer in a lot of ways because he was a fighter pilot and he was a war fighter. I believe he had over 130 combat missions, so he's probably a kind of a badass. However, like you mentioned, he was a woke general signed by the Biden administration to input woke ideas and woke ideology into the military as opposed to lethality. Whereas Pete Hegseth and Trump have moved towards lethality as opposed to, feel-good metrics. So I think that's a good change. And as you mentioned, Dan Raisin Kane, which is an awesome call sign for his last name, right? Raisin Kane.
That's okay.
A warfighter. He came up with a strategy apparently to destroy ISIS. And again, ISIS was seen as unbeatable at the time. And then Trump came in and everybody forgot about ISIS, right? Like I always kind of point out the fact that if you look back at our old Real Veteran News videos or unauthorized media videos when we were discussing the 2020 election, nobody talked about ISIS in the 2020 election because ISIS was gone. 2024, ISIS was an issue again because Biden and CQ Brown didn't know how to fight wars. And as a result, our enemies prospered. So CQ Brown, yeah, he was carrying out his commander-in-chief's will, but that was a bad will, and he deserves to be fired for that.
Just a couple of things that you said. Like you said, ISIS was gone. I personally don't think ISIS was gone. They had the land, their caliphate in northern Iraq and Syria. They destroyed that. I think that the Air Force did a good job. Obviously, Special Forces did a good job, Special Operations, but it wasn't a super strategic campaign. They basically just rolled them out using partner forces, and they dropped every bomb they had on them. I mean, I'm glad it happened, but it's not like some magnificent masterpiece of military strategy.
Right. Of course, you just need the willpower to act that Obama didn't have at the end of his term. But I mean, in 2020, ISIS was basically destroyed and it no longer had a caliphate. It was an idea at that point. And hopefully in 2028, we'll know if Trump is successful in the 2028 election. Does ISIS have any territory in 2028?
Trump doesn't really say this, but Hegseth talks about like lethality, which is essentially the military version of like meritocracy that they talk about on the news, which is like, obviously the military is lethal. It's kind of like, I don't know. I think there's like a fetish around this, and I don't think it really means anything. I don't like, who the fuck is calling me? Mom.
Hi, honey. How you doing?
I'm on.
Hi, honey. How you doing? I heard that.
I'm making a video. I'm busy talking about ISIS. We gotta go. All right. Bye.
Don't edit that out. That has to stay in.
Shut the fuck up.
I love how, wait, I want to interrupt. That was a good interruption point because I like how you, Ranger Boy Koenig, are suddenly anti-lethality. Like right there, you said lethality was like a sales pitch, but
it's just a fucking political term. You know what I mean? What they should be focused on is technology and AI, which they're not.
Well, that's the ability to be lethal.
They're just trying to like roll military back to the Civil War days. They're making orders about like what color nail polish women can have in the Air Force. Fucking stupid. These are stupid guys, right? They don't know anything about AI. And I mean, yeah, okay, they're going to drop in bombs, which is like anybody can fucking do that, honestly. So whatever.
I mean, bright target nail polish, or if there's like infrared nail polish that can stand out on infrared sensors, should probably be banned.
Women sitting at a desk, who gives a fuck what they're doing? Who gives a shit? No one cares. All right, look. When Trump came in, he fired the head of the Coast Guard, Linda Fagan. I don't really care about the Coast Guard that much, but she probably sucked. And they'd always wanted females on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They want the Joint Chiefs of Staff to not be men. So they had the first female on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Lisa Franchetti, who I don't really know too much about her, but it looks like she sucks. And the Navy obviously sucks at this point too. So they fired her. She's probably like super on this DEI stuff if they approved her. And I don't know. I don't know too much about her, but she probably sucks. There might be some women in the services that can do this. I don't think it really matters. I don't think that having a woman on the chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff meetings makes a difference. I don't necessarily think – I think women should be involved, but I don't necessarily think diversity is our strength. Like, that's stupid. You need serious military people. If there's a serious military woman somewhere that can and wants to do this, okay. But this obviously is like a political appointment to solve some kind of diversity goal. So, like, yeah, axe all these people. That's great. I want to see who they replace them with. But the problem is they're not replacing these people with AI fetishists. They're replacing them with these, like, anti-DEI, like, deranged men, basically. So, whatever. That's my opinion on it. Mason, you said that military officers should go to some sort of military academy, whether it's a service academy, VMI, or even the Citadel.
I agree.
Why do you think that?
So, well, one, I mean, it's just an engrossment in military culture. Like, I didn't realize the advantage I had over my peers when I became an officer because, you know, at the Air Force Academy, I was bottom 25%. I graduated 791 out of 917 in my class.
So you're a bottom at the Air Force Academy?
Yeah, that still makes me better than the average ROTC guy. But there's an element of physical fitness and of just military culture that gets rubbed off on you. So my point is that Navy Secretary of the Navy, or the Chairman of the Navy, that woman, Franchetta or whatever her name is, she was a Northwestern graduate, which is Illinois. So likely she is a political appointee by the Obama administration still, because everybody's joking that the Biden term was Obama's third term. I think that's a great example. Why would a pure DEI, a pure hire for her characteristics and traits, who's from Illinois, like that fits the bill of an Obama third term appointee?
I don't think the fact that she's from Illinois has an issue to do with it. I mean, she obviously is like DEI hire or whatever. All right, look. First off, why are you better than someone from ROTC? And second, why are you better than a prior enlisted officer who understands the enlisted side of things? I personally like prior enlisted officers. So, like,
I agree with that.
What happens at the Air Force Academy that makes you guys all high and mighty?
Well, one, you can have prior enlisted officers that go to the Air Force Academy. My roommate was a prior enlisted officer. He went on to do great, amazing things. So I think the prior enlisted officers that go to the Air Force Academy or the academies and then graduate are going to be the best officers of all. Again, like you said, because they have better empathy for the enlisted soldier. And there's a lot of academy grads that are just raging assholes. So just because you're an academy grad doesn't mean you're going to be the best. But I think that the academies are the best source of your best officers. Again, it's because I spent my college years engrossed in military studies and learning how to be lethal, whereas the average ROTC grad spent their time going to frat parties. And I think that's a huge difference.
My counterpoint to that is the first main thing is when you got all these guys that went to West Point, and I don't care about the Air Force Academy, I care about West Point. You got all these guys that went to West Point and they're all circle jerking each other all these years and the class rings and there's all this shit. They get into this group think where they don't want to offend each other, right? There's like this club that they're all in. You're either in the club or you're not. And if you're in the club, you don't want to be the guy that's not talking like everybody else because you're like the odd man out. You've got a wife, you got kids, you got your little mortgage. You want to be able to like have that career that you went to the naval or to the academy for or whatever. The other thing is like I went to University of Maryland. I spent my youth being a fucking American. And I know what happens at these service academies is you guys take 18 credits. You know, there's barely any chicks around. You're not going to parties. You're not, you know, hanging out with friends. You're not enjoying America. You don't have the same experience as other American young people do. You're deprived of that. in a way.
Correct.
And yes, you get like a little bit more of like the military rigmarole or whatever, but you really don't do any serious military shit. You're just fucking running around and with second-rate equipment, playing land nav in the woods and hazing each other, and like sitting at home on a Friday and sitting in the whatever barracks or whatever y'all got on the Friday night.
You're studying and you're preparing to go to war is what you're doing. And those routes you guys are not.
Okay. Yeah. That's gonna make you, come on, man. You think kids like regular college aren't studying? And like, honestly, the school's not that good. I mean, they're a bit better than average, but like, it's not Harvard, it's not Stanford.
It's better.
It's not even some of the better state schools, to be honest.
Now,
right?
the standards may have lessened since I graduated, but when I was there, they were incredibly high. And I have gone to civilian colleges, both before entering the Air Force Academy, I went to VCU. And after graduating, I got my MBA at South Carolina. And it was incredibly easy compared to the Air Force Academy, which is important to be a subject matter expert in the AI race that you're mentioning, to be a subject matter expert in modern technologies, also in the laws of armed conflict, also in the history of U.S. military operations. In addition, you get a lot of leadership training. We have daily leadership seminars. And yeah, there's still going to be some shitty leaders. But one of the best things about the academies is it gives you a chance to be a shitty leader. One of my mentors at the Air Force Academy used to say, like, the most important thing you can do here is put the worst future officer candidate in charge of something now so that they can fuck it up when nothing matters and when nobody's going to die. And he would laugh. He's like, when we're going to march to lunch, if somebody can't figure out how to march the troops to Mitchell Hall where we have lunch, eventually they're going to say, like, all right, fuck this. Everybody gaggle harch this way and we'll get to lunch. But that's a learning experience, and it's true. Once you actually get put in position and you fail in a time when it doesn't matter, you can learn who you are as a leader. And that's what the academies really do.
That can't happen in ROTC. Sure,
it's just not this. They get their 6-week thing in the summer where they go and they're in charge for a couple of days. It's not the same as being, for me, I was the cadet training officer. And I loved being a cadet training officer. It was a lot of fun. And there were times that I was an asshole. There definitely were. There were times that I just hazed the shit out of some people. But I'm sure you enjoyed doing that when you were at RIP.
There's two reasons why most of y'all go there. One, it's fucking free. And two, you're fucking nerds and you want people to like respect you or whatever. Be like, you know what I mean? Like,
I went because one, it was free, but two, I wanted the best education I could possibly get. And I wanted to set myself up for a career in the military.
Yeah, because you wanted that fucking cachet. Let's move on. The next interesting topic to talk about is Trump and Hegseth. They want to cut the budget down from roughly, 820 some billion dollars this year. They're going to cut it by 8% a year each year for the next 5 years, but they're going to not save that money. They're going to reapportion it into Trump's priorities, right? So like basically slicing and dicing Biden's budget and then putting it into Trump's priorities. What do you think about that, Mason?
Should be really easy. First of all, if you look at the DOGE, like what they're finding in other locations, I'm sure DOGE will find the things that we never anticipated. Two, you can get those personnel cuts that'll save a ton of money right off the bat. But the easy money is going to be ending any support for Ukraine. That'll be $50 billion annually because we've sent $200 to $250 billion in the last 4 years. So right there, that gives you your first goal of $50 billion annually. Just stop supporting Ukraine and you've already saved that money.
That's a special appropriation.
In the JSF, boom, done.
Yeah.
Here's another example. The Global Hawk, for instance. The first 10 prototypes of the Global Hawk cost $10 million each in 1994. Now they are a cost of $131 million each. So think about it. The prototypes were less expensive than the modern 4-scale version by a factor of 13.
The sensors are probably more expensive.
Yeah, the sensors are more advanced. They have additional sensors. But that's an example of abuse of contracting, where you need to have lean, mean fighting machines as drones, not a sensor that's up there that has every single fucking sensor possible. You need to look at it as a data scientist and say, which of these sensors are actually valuable? Which one of these are we using in 99% of missions, and which one has never been used once in 5 years of fielding it? And that one that's never been used once in 5 years of fielding it, get fucking rid of it. And guess what? Then the entire thing will probably be 25% cheaper. So I'm sure you can look at it from a data science perspective and look at the effectiveness and value added of each one of those sensors and figure out which parts to cannibalize and get rid of to make that program cheaper. You do that for every single one of the major Air Force programs or other programs throughout the military, and boom, you've got a lot of savings right there. Also, in the sense of cloud contracting, why are we using cloud service providers? We should just go ahead and build our own on-premise data centers more than we already do, and that would immediately cut out a lot of DoD contract expenditures. There's so much wasted expenditures that we could find right there. And again, as I mentioned, so you streamline your weapon systems, get rid of the JSF, get rid of all the DEI programs and the war in Ukraine, and you've basically accomplish 4 years of cuts in the first year. And that's not even talking about what DOGE is going to find.
I personally don't think that the savings in the Department of Defense are in personnel. Like they're going to cut probationary workers. I think that's stupid. Arbitrary cuts. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they're doing. People in America don't like that. It looks stupid. It seems stupid to just randomly cut all these new people. Plus, people, and I'm probably going to say this before this, but like people don't like the idea that you're just blanket cutting people because everybody was young. Everybody had their first job. Everybody had that, excitement, trying to do good on their first job. People in their mind are like, this person's, just got their job. They're going to be trying extra hard, right? And then you're firing them for no good reason. And on top of that, you're saying their performance is bad, which is not. That leaves a bad taste in average Americans' mouth. So that I don't think the savings is there. Like Mason said, F-35 has been a ripoff, and it's probably not exactly what we need it to be. So that either needs to be slimmed back or something.
Just get rid of it and replace it with the F-22.
The Sentinel missile, the replacement for the Minuteman missile. I don't think we need ICBMs anymore. I think that the bombers and you can drop missiles, you can drop nukes from space. The submarines are going to be the main way to deliver nuclear missiles. I think the Sentinel missile needs to go. The big stupid aircraft carriers that don't work. We don't need any more aircraft carriers. They don't work. They're going to get hit by hypersonic missiles. All our young people are going to die on them. Those need to be reworked into smaller vessels that can submerge and be under the water, right? Like when they're on top of the surface of the water and they're moving slowly, they're very easy to hit with missiles. They got to be able to go down, right? So I think those, go ahead.
On that note, it's a great point. I agree with you. But one thing we missed talking about is, didn't an aircraft carrier get rammed last week by like a merchant vessel? How the fuck does a merchant vessel get close enough to an aircraft carrier to ram it?
Because the officers are incompetent and they cut the budget on training and they just cut their training down and they keep running into all these other ships.
Yeah, but if a boat can run into a carrier, which is supposed to be at the center of a carrier group, a missile definitely can. That's my point there. I agree with everything you said.
Let's talk about Trump's priorities. Trump's priorities want to shift that money into our Indo-PACOM, which is like, preparing to like confront China is basically what that means. Operations on the southern border, war fighting. They've been cutting a lot of training from the warfighter units. That's what Pete Hegseth got his panties in a bunch about. Getting the boys and girls out there training in the woods again. UAVs and drones. That's what Elon Musk got his dick hard over. And then missile defense. This idea of theater missile defense or some kind of like missile dome over the United States, which is probably not possible. What do you think about Trump's priorities?
I mean, I agree with a lot of them. I would say like the fundamental tenets of leadership in the military are basically get the right people and give them the right equipment. There's one big omission that they had in that readiness package, which I want to touch on. First, I agree that missile defense needs to be a number one priority, and you can do that through the Navy primarily. The Navy is going to be our number one source, and the Coast Guard as well, of missile defense, because you can have those ships basically creating a blockade of the entire United States, at least from the east-west perspective. We're going to need something on the southern border and the northern border, so I don't really know how to accomplish that. Maybe Greenland actually would be a very strategic method of accomplishing that. Also, I think we need some anti-missile defense in Afghanistan because that's a good sensor location for any missiles coming out of Western China. Missile defense, I agree, should be a number one priority, and that comes along with, again, all those sensors, as well as drones. I think drones will be a huge future for missile defense.
But like a missile coming from China to the United States is going to go over the North Pole. That's the fastest way. So that's why they want Greenland.
Yeah. But I think that we talked in the past of like Western China is where they're going to launch from a lot of the ideas. So if we can have sensors that can detect the launch, that would be a very valuable thing. And I think Afghanistan's a good location for that. Let's see. The southern border, I think that's going to be pretty much done in the next couple of months. I do think that we're going to see a long-term investment in the Department of Homeland Security and the Customs and Border Protection. I think they should just put some alligators and maybe some other crocodiles in the Rio Grande River, and that'll solve a lot of the problems. Like it'd be kind of cool to turn that into a moat. Not serious, but like that, or like some like flesh-eating piranhas, something like that. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, sorry, that was stupid. But like, I agree that we need to, unleash hell on the cartels. And I think those cartels aren't going to know what hit them. They've been getting very free with themselves and their operations. Their profits under Joe Biden were up 13,000%. And it's going to be interesting to see in the next couple of months how that gets destroyed. And also on that note, like we can make it a lot easier on ourselves by just not funding illegal immigration like the Joe Biden administration was. When you hear that they spent $22 billion to bring illegals into the country as opposed to actually securing the border and protecting the American citizens like they're supposed to.
That's stupid. So stupid.
Whatever.
Like, one of the dumbest things any president has ever done is taking care of the illegal immigrants and not closing the border down. I mean, you're just like, all they're going to do is call home and be like, yo, they got us free hotel rooms. You know, I mean,
right. When you hear, and that's exact, I thought you were calling me stupid, not the Biden administration stupid. So I was like, what the fuck? But like when you hear that they're spending all that money to, again, put them in hotels in New York City, that's a direct stimulus to bad hotel owners who probably would have gone out of business otherwise, and because they probably had an inferior product. And so the guys who instead had the ability to manipulate Washington, D.C. to keep their rooms full were basically stealing from the American taxpayer. And it was a direct subsidy from the American taxpayer to New York City.
These are nice hotels, very nice hotels that they were staying in.
Yeah, but they were probably overpriced, and they're probably not. I wonder what their occupancy rates were before they got that government contract. So anyways, then the other final thing you mentioned, Indo-PACOM as being a huge item, and I agree with that because, I mean, India is the I in BRIC, which is the anti-American coalition of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So we definitely need to focus on India being kind of an enemy. And I think one component of that would be cutting out the H-1B visa. If you look at it, like 95% of them are coming from India. So it's just a straight manipulation of immigration laws. I feel like you solve that problem through tariffs. You got to put a tariff on the H-1B visa. And you make it so that anybody who uses the H-1B visa, if they're saying that they're better than American workers, you charge a 500% tax on that worker. And that way you're like, okay, this guy's better than an American. Aladdin, that song, is strong as 10 regular men, as you can see. Well, guess what? That 500% tariff is going to make sure that's actually valid. But again, I'm a huge fan of just tariffs. And the final thing I would say from the India-PACOM thing is we need to add tariffs to China out the wazoo. Right now, we're literally funding our enemy, building up their strength so that they can destroy us in the future, all in the lens of a venture capital investment.
One thing I'll mention, you mentioned BRICS. Everyone's just like whining about BRICS or whatever. Russia, India, and China all hate each other. So that's not going to work. They're never going to agree on anything. They're just fucking with us. The thing you really need to be watching out for is Saudi Arabia. So I'll just say that. I basically agree with you on a lot of stuff with regard to Trump priorities, all your pet peeve shit I don't really care about. But if we're going to have war fighters, they're going to be away from their families. They're going to be in the military. They're going to be waking up in the fucking morning. They should have the money to go do their military training, not have their military training canceled or downgraded because they want to spend the money on something else. They're not spending that much money on DEI programs, but it is a waste of money. Basically, just talk about the southern border. I think the military should be on the southern border. I think there should be a hard wall from coast to coast, not because of the illegal immigrants. I mean, to a degree, yes. And we need to send a signal out there that like we're not like a country to just be fucked with, as these people have been fucking with us. But this last pandemic was nothing. It was just like a dry run, essentially. The next pandemic, when it's like really like World War Z, every single person in that southern hemisphere is just going to start walking north. You think migrant caravans are bad? It's going to be like a sea of humans, all filthy and sick, just walking their way up to the border. And it doesn't matter how much border patrol, how many drones, how many whatever you have. Even if you start machine gunning them, they're not going to stop. All right. There needs to be a high impenetrable wall that can be reinforced in areas where this happens, because when this next pandemic comes, whether it's like man-made, like the last one, whether it's man-made, some kind of biological weapon, terrorism type thing, or it's some natural pandemic that happens, I mean, sickness is going to come, and all these people are going to come north because they got no other option, because basically all these other countries suck.
That's a good point.
I want a hard wall. And the other thing is, too, if you just do a soft wall, you just put military on the border, when Kamala Harris comes back, she can just turn all that shit off. You know what I mean? If you have a hard wall there, it's there.
With gators.
And what is she going to do? Like pull it down? She's going to get the Army Corps of Engineers to be like, tear down this wall. No, that's not going to happen. So something permanent on the southern border where people can't get through.
With gators.
Yeah, with a moat and alligators and whatever, sharks with lasers, whatever you need to stop people from coming up. And I believe in that. So good video. Do you have any final message, Mason?
I think we need to use economic warfare to our advantage while we still can. And unfortunately, we've been conducting economic warfare against Americans instead of against our adversaries. And that needs to change.
Yeah, I think we need to maintain our economic dominance as well. So it was good talking to you, Mason. Now let's wrap it up for this part of the show. Thanks. All right, everybody. Now it's time for the part of the show where we do a quick debate between two veterans. This week we got two Navy veterans, and we also have Mark, who first time on any of my videos, and I just met him. So had a good conversation the other night, but this is the first chance to make videos together. If you guys would like to introduce yourself, Mark, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Mark. I'm a retired Navy senior chief. I was an avionics technician for 26 years, and I'm glad to be here.
All right, it should be fun. Shane?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Shane. I only did 4 years, so CTR2 Stevens way back in the day, and just happy to be back on this show.
Cool. Well, I know you guys are both really interested in politics, and first time that we've ever had two Navy people on a show, because Shane's been my only Navy dude for a long time. So the first topic is the Trump polls. We saw some interesting Trump polls that made it look like he was dropping down to his normal mid-40s popularity. And then I saw another poll that came out that said that he was approval up over 53. I don't know if it's how they're sampling or what, but there appear to be some conflicting polls about whether Trump's rapid fire actions and everything are damaging his popularity with the middle of the country here. So Mark's going to go first.
So I think Trump's popularity is definitely coming down, mostly because of a lot of what seem to be unthought through processes that he's implementing. The tariffs are not going the way that many Americans expected them to go. Their costs are going up, and the inflationary things are going up. Trump came in, he pardoned a whole bunch of violent offenders right out of the gate from January 6th. That was probably not the best move. And we all watched it on TV, and we all know what happened, but yet he pardoned all of those people. Eggs are more expensive now than they were under Joe Biden. And he came in and he fired all the scientists that were working on the bird flu, which is why they culled all the birds and which is why eggs are more expensive. These kinds of actions are why Trump is becoming less and less popular as the days go by.
All right. Yeah, to your point, John, I'm not sure if the numbers are correctly reflected, but I can definitely tell you that I believe the administration just doesn't care right at this point. They won in a landslide, all 7 swing states, and they just absolutely crushed it in the mandates. So they're just going to plow through with their agenda. Polls be damned, because they're going to just view them as a biased, for whoever they publish them out. And I'm sure they got their own internal polls that they're happy with. And if they don't like their own internal polls, they're going to switch what they're doing. But for right now, I believe they're just going to plow ahead. They see that their constituencies are very happy with what they're currently doing, and I believe they're just going to keep going pedal to the metal until the midterms. So, yeah, that's what I have to see. See currently going to the polls. They're not scared at all with the polls. They just don't frankly believe it. It is what it is. You can believe it or not, depending on which news source you believe is the most accurate and less biased, yada, yada, yada. But in the end, they just don't care.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true, just from what we saw the representatives go through over the past week. Representative Stephanie Bice from Oklahoma, Rich McCormick from my great state of Georgia, Glenn Grothman in Wisconsin, and Scott Fitzgerald in Wisconsin all held town halls in the past 4 days and all got absolutely lambasted by their constituents over the things the administration has been doing. So I don't know that the polls are necessarily wrong, and I don't know that, but you are right. I don't think they care. I absolutely do not believe the administration gives two damns about what happens to the American people.
So we just got to talk about two damns about the American people. Yes, they don't care, mainly because do we really believe in what the sampling is correct? Do we believe in the polls? The polls have been just so god-awful wrong for so long in the past several years that generally no one really cares or believes in the polls anymore. Most of the people are sampling are young, left-leaning folks who are going out there, and that's the reason why when their own polls came out there, said they were going to blow them out of the water, and they did. So they do care about the people. They just don't care about whatever some person's just screaming to high hell on the left side saying oh, this is what they're doing. They don't care. They don't believe it. All right. So they don't not buying in the Kool-Aid.
So I think the continued loss is confidence is going to keep going as long as they keep doing things like coming out and firing the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the CNO and all of the JAGs and anybody that could possibly provide checks and balances and pushback against everything that they're doing, and doing it under this guise of DEI, which is just a cop-out, I think. It's a reason to fire somebody because you don't like them for whatever reason. And I think that is going to continue to add to loss of confidence in the administration, and their polling is going to continue to go down.
Fully reject that. I know President Trump actually praised the former Air Force general, 4-star. He actually was actually promoted under his leadership, under his administration when he got pushed there. And this whole, we got the checks and balances, the constitutional crisis. It's almost like an orchestra from every single mainstream media out there. They almost can't decide on what not to say other than just a few verbatim things that you just kind of hear in an echo chamber. The Republicans, we got our own echo chamber as well, but at least we're able to kind of somewhat admit it. If the left can't admit that they're living with their own echo chamber and they're drinking their own Kool-Aid, then come on, guys, we can meet somewhere in the middle here. At least know that we're both hypocrites to somewhat extent.
All right, that was great. Next topic is Doge cuts, Doge dividends, what they were talking about, CPAC. And on this topic, Shane's going to go first. So Shane, you get started.
We are going in almost 2.1 trillion in debt every single year now moving forward. I'm not going to blame any prior administration for this one. I think it's just a conflagration of just incompetence across many administrations. Look, this just needs to happen. All right. We are getting wildly out of hand with this. Our interest rate payments are going to be more than our actual DOD payments themselves. And we need to start looking into audit the entitlements program and the DOD, because we know as veterans that there's just some wildly expensive and outrageous costs out there that should not be in there. It's time to get things under budget. We could do it a little bit easier. Hopefully we can try to tailor this a little bit faster, a little bit easier for the millions of Americans who do work for the federal government, who do believe in this country. So we do need to make sure that they are able to transition this, because we do give a rat's butt about them because they do care. And so we absolutely need to address that. I think we can, address that in a little bit better way. But in the end, this needs to happen, guys, no matter what.
Doge as a concept is a necessary thing that we need to have. But it's the execution that inherently has the problem. It wasn't chartered. It wasn't approved by the Senate. And they have an immense amount of power that is not constitutionally guaranteed. That is my overall problem with Doge. Not the concept, but how it's executed. There's already been several agencies that have been told not to respond to Elon Musk and not to cooperate with him, including the FBI under Kash Patel, Homeland Security, Education and Commerce, FDIC, IRS, National Institutes of Health, and National Labor Relations Board. Why? Because he is not constitutionally permitted to do the things that he is doing. So out of this, Doge is outside the checks and balances of our constitutional government, and that is a problem with Doge in general.
For the most part, I think Mark and I can at least agree on the way this is implemented could go better. But I do believe constitutionally wise, I think they're well within the rights. I know that Congress, they spend the money, but if we go in and you audit and you find that the money isn't being appropriately spent to what Congress said, then I believe it's under the federal mandate to go in there and just rip it all up until they say, hey, this is actually, we need to allocate the funds to what Congress actually dictated, in which they're going out and saying, this is way outside the bounds. So that's, I believe, where their federal mandates is coming from.
I mean, absolutely. We were all in the military. I think one of the biggest things that Doge could do is revamp the way that military budgets are done. Everybody's done that massive spending at the end of September so we don't lose our budget at the beginning of the next fiscal year. We're all familiar with that. That absolutely should stop. There should be a reward for everybody saving some money from their budget at the end of the year instead of mindlessly spending it on everything else. And that could go up and down if they wanted to do some real across-the-board spending changes within the Department of Defense. Change the way the budget's executed.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I mean, to that point, I think the budget just grows big because, your department, you have $60K to spend for this month for your equipment and gear. And if you don't spend it, then, it's going to get cut, right? So down to 50. And you don't want to be that guy who gets your budget cut for your team. So of course you're going to try to maximize, even if it's not the best for your stuff, right? Let's just grab the extra gear just in case, right? And times that by millions of small teams and projects throughout the federal government who just are trying to do what's best for their team. And it just naturally grows, right? And so we need to do a better job of nipping at it, but it's not a bad thing that it grows, but it's a back and forth kind of ordeal with that. I think we understand in the middle for that.
I think we can actually agree on this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Yeah.
My issue is just the way that it was executed. It could have been done better, and I think with a better execution, most of the American people probably have a little more faith in Doge and what Elon Musk is doing.
I will say that as independent person myself, that I don't like them firing young people that just got their first job. So,
yeah, that's fair.
That puts a bad taste in my mouth.
That's right.
All right, good topic there with DOGE. And the last topic is Ukraine deal, Trump, Zelensky, all the negotiations. Looks like the war's winding down, which is a good thing. Let's just get into the debate here. Mark will be going first.
Ukraine is our ally, and they have been since their independence. We owe it to them as a country to continue to support them because they were, in fact, invaded by Russia. They are not the aggressors here. They are a sovereign nation that was invaded by another nation. So we owe it to them for no other reason than they are our ally, and we told them that we would. Ukraine people should not be bartered for rare earth mineral rights in a country like they're trying to do. We shouldn't be offering them money for mineral rights. We should just be supporting them because they are our allies.
Mark's pro allies. Shane, you're up.
I'll agree with Mark that 100% in this situation, Russia was absolutely the aggressor. I mean, we saw it happening. They rolled in their tanks with 200,000 troops into Ukraine, full stop. With that said, and millions and hundreds of thousands of brave Ukrainian soldiers died defending their homeland, and God rest their souls. But with that said, we have given them hundreds of billions of dollars of money and ammunition and supplies, well more than the European unions has ever have. And right now we are at war, at a quasi-war, with a nuclear power over 1/5 of the eastern flank of a country that nobody in America could point out on a map before this war popped off. All right? This is a quasi-war with Russia, with a nuclear power. I don't care. Get it done. We are at war with a nuclear power, and we are right there. I don't care. We are at a very, very slippery slope. Get this shit wrapped up. I don't care about whose feelings get hurt. This war needs to stop now.
We've given a total of $170 billion that has been authorized by Congress to Ukraine. $70 billion went in cash. $100 billion went to U.S. contractors, defense contractors. You've heard the administration say $350 billion, $500 billion. The number is $170 billion. Zelensky wants peace as well. He offered to step down today in exchange for peace and Ukraine's admittance into NATO, which is absolutely not going to happen because Putin won't allow it. We just need to continue to support them, and we do need to demand that the EU step up more. Poland has been on board, Sweden has been on board, Finland has been on board, but the EU needs to step in or they're going to have a full-blown war in their own backyard again.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. The EU needs to step up. We're the police of the world, and we're trying our damn best to protect everyone from the world coming to anarchy, but we're 37 trillion in debt, right? We need help. We need help from everyone. So, guys, EU, please step it up right now so we can stop this damn war. We've given them hundreds of billions. Yes, most of it's gone to our contractors here in the Beltway. I absolutely agree with that. That does not negate the fact that without us, Ukraine would be absolute powder right now if it wasn't for the United States. So we are the ones in the driver's seat. We can end this war today. We need to stop this. There's millions of Russian and Ukrainians dying. This shit needs to stop.
I agree. The war needs to come to an end. The dislocated Ukrainians need to be able to go back home, but they don't need to cede any of their land. It's their sovereign homeland. Just like the U.S. would not cede any sovereign territory here, they shouldn't be required to cede any of their territory there.
It's a difficult conversation to have almost 1 million Ukrainians die and then in the end still give up the land that you fought so dearly for. And this is truly upsetting to even contemplate, but we have to admit what hard power is and what the reality is on the ground is. The reality is on the ground is that a nuclear power with thousands of nuclear weapons have 1/5 of the land, and they are not going anywhere, and they are willing to use nuclear weapons. And we need to stop this. If it means 1/5 of the land, guys, let's call it a wrap. Let's move on. We got bigger issues to solve with.
All right, great discussion on the last topic, Ukraine war. I think we can all pretty much agree that it looks like it's coming to an end one way or another, and war has been terrible there. So good discussion, good show. Thanks to you guys for participating, and thanks everybody for watching. See you next week. Goodbye.